Hello and welcome to this very special interview for ThePrint. I am Apoorva Mandhani and I have with me former President of Supreme Court Bar Association and one of the country's most highly regarded lawyers, Sr Adv Dushyant Dave. Mr. Dave has never shied away, never minced words when it comes to appreciation as well as criticism of the judiciary, and apart from of course, practicing in the Supreme Court, he's also been a very keen observer of the court's functioning. So he's joining me today to talk about all things law and judiciary. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Dave.
Hi.
Like I mentioned, you've of course been a keen observer of the court and its functioning. You've written quite a few articles about it. So just generally to begin, what is your evaluation of the Supreme Court's functioning currently, more recently? How do you look at it?
Well, I will tell you just what happened about 45 minutes ago in the court. Chief Justice Chandrachud with Justices Pardiwala and Justice Mishra was hearing this matter of teachers from West Bengal,
right,
who have been ordered to be thrown out, almost 22,000 plus teachers by the High Court of Calcutta. And one of the issues which, according to me, goes to the very foundation of the matter was that in this matter, the petitions were filed up for almost 3.5 years after the teachers were appointed. And in 1 year, under the rules of the West Bengal, education rules, the OMR sheets are required to be destroyed.
Right.
So much after the OMR sheets were destroyed, somebody filed petitions. And in the first petition, of course, there was no challenge as to illegalities, much less irregularities. But Justice Gangopadhyay, as he then was, took up, and on 3rd of March 2022, he ordered a CBI inquiry. And then, of course, it was a fishing inquiry which he had ordered. CBI also, went into a roving inquiry and found, not from the Commission of West Bengal Education Commission, but an agency which was engaged by them, and the agency which in turn was engaged by this official agency,
right,
found from somebody in Ghaziabad some kind of a disc, and on the basis of the disc they gave a report to the High Court, and High Court said that you must therefore, these are the OMR sheets, and therefore there is discrepancy in the OMR sheets and the actual markings, and therefore everybody must be sent home. When I pointed out to the Supreme Court today about 45 minutes ago, and I said this is clearly violative of the Pinochet principle, because Justice Gangopadhyay on 3rd of March 2022 gives this order. Subsequently, while he is hearing that matter, he gave a detailed public interview in which he spoke about this matter. He spoke about his desire to throw out all these 22,000 teachers who were validly recruited, and he talked about his own political ambitions and said that I want to someday, maybe if I get a chance, I'll join politics.
Right.
Now, he actually did resign prematurely. We all saw that. He met the Honorable Prime Minister on some stage within 24 or 48 hours of his resigning, and has now become a BJP candidate. I therefore said that on Pinochet principle, there is a House of Lords judgment which has said that this is a clear case of bias. And I therefore said that if there is a case of bias, this judgment will have to go. Judges, I was very surprised, the Chief Justice Chandrachud remarked, not directly at me, but at some stage he remarked at the members of the bar, saying that, if you were to talk about politics, you should go to parliament. If you want to bring your ideology, this is not the place to, bring your ideology. It was a shocking remark.
Right.
He does not mind his judges having ideological inclinations. He does not mind his judges indulging in politics. But he has, some kind of exception when lawyers point it out. It only shows that Chief Justice does not have, finds it unpalatable, does not have courage to face reality. And I must tell you, had it been anybody like Chief Justice Venkatachalaya, Chief Justice Lodha, or Chief Justice Verma, or any of those great judges, they would have for asking stayed this judgment.
Right.
But so I'm just telling you that the complexion of the court has undergone a serious change, and that is not good for the institution. Because, judges don't realize that people like us, our only religion is Constitution. We have no ideology except Constitution of India. And we are therefore passionately putting across to the judges, trying to persuade them that there is something seriously ailing your judiciary.
Right.
You as Chief Justice of India, please look at it, consider it, correct it. But far from doing so, I was so disappointed that the Chief Justice thought that we were making political and ideological arguments. I think it really shows that judges have lost stomach, especially Chief Justices have lost stomach to really correct the judicial system, which is, in my respectful submission, seriously politicized. Because we have seen judges after judges, Sadasivam, Chief Justice Sadasivam, Chief Justice Gogoi, and Justice Nazir, many of them, in recent times, having decided matters in favor of the government, have been offered lucrative constitutional positions. They have accepted them, and they are functioning there. So I think somewhere we have lost the bus. We need to bring back judiciary on a platform, on a level where it is fiercely independent, and it really sticks to the constitution and is not afraid of the political establishment, however strong the leadership may be, and does something which is really in the larger interest of public.
Right. Just to mention what you just said, judiciary has gone through a sea of change. You said the complexion has gone through change. When, according to you, did this phenomenon of change begin? Has it been happening over time, or is it something that you're noticing more recently?
See, I have no doubt that judiciary in good old times also was affected by politics. There is no doubt about it. There were many judges in the past, like Justice Hegde, Justice Hidayatullah, who jumped to politics after their judgeship.
Right.
But what we are witnessing today is something different. That there is a clear cases of quid pro quo amongst judges. You give judgments in favor of the ruling establishment and you are rewarded with positions.
Right.
This trend has emerged very recently, especially after 2010.
Okay.
And this is an extremely disturbing trend which is happening, across the country. And judges are being given not only such positions, but also important positions like Lokpal and, Human Rights Commission, where, far from doing actual work which you are expected to do as, these kind of extraordinary institutions are, the judges are really failing the country.
Right.
Take, for example, Justice Mishra as chairman of the National Human Rights Commission. He has done precious little. And that is why we find that hundreds and hundreds of people are, encountered and killed in state of Uttar Pradesh. So, gross violations of human rights are being ignored. And it was Justice Mishra who, steadfastly supported the ruling establishment while he was a judge, and also supported some leading industrialists of the country.
Right.
So these are matters which really raise very serious concerns for us citizens.
Right. And you also said that you've noticed CJI is losing stomach, they've lost stomach. Now, just to come to Chief Justice of India, D.Y. Chandrachud's tenure, it's been 1.5 years. And it's also, for our viewers, it's been a while since we've had a Chief Justice for such a long tenure. So how do you evaluate his 1.5 years of tenure so far?
Well, I must say, I must begin with a caveat. He has been a friend.
Right.
We, have mutual respect. And I do find that he's an intellectually, extremely, giant.
Right.
But I must say at the same time that Chief Justice has not lived up to the expectations of, I would say expectations of the Constitution, of the constitutional framers. Forget he has not lived up to the expectations of some of us, people like us. We don't matter, we don't count. But I feel that he could have really ensured a very, very strong rule of law in this country.
Right.
He could have ensured that democracy is able to thrive and becomes genuinely vibrant. Today you are, seeing that large-scale attacks are taking place against opposition leaders. Large-scale, alleged scams are being discovered in opposition-ruled states. Not one, leader of the ruling party, not one state government of the ruling party in states is being investigated, much less, anybody being arrested. Now, this kind of a trend is an extremely disturbing trend. And it is only judges who, as part of their checks and balance, powers, can really stop these melees. And I must say, Chief Justice Chandrachud's leadership has not been able to do that at all. And I must say that not only, it's the rule of law which has become extremely weak in the country, but the justice that people should get, which is, a truly, very fiercely administered justice, that is now getting singularly absent, not only, in many cases in the Supreme Court, I won't say most, but many cases in Supreme Court, especially politically sensitive cases, and in many high courts across the country. Because what's really happening today is that the critics are not being protected, stand-up comedians are not being protected. So you are minority members are not being protected.
Right.
So you are coming across a situation where things are really, I would say, becoming very, very challenging for a nation. And we are a great country. We are a country where democracy means a lot, because democracy was achieved after sacrifice of millions of Indians for 100 years between 1857 to 1947. We are really today turning ourselves into an authoritarian state.
Right.
And I would say judiciary is singularly responsible for that.
That's of course a very strong comment coming from you, but what does it mean for the people? We've seen that concerns about people's faith in the judiciary being eroded has come from the judiciary as well. We saw Justice Abhay Oka make that comment earlier this year about how people's faith in the judiciary is going down. What do you have to say about that, and why do you think this is happening?
See, there is no doubt about the fact that judiciary has outstanding judges.
Right.
Many outstanding judges. I would say, overwhelming judges are outstanding. But judiciary also has its own share of inefficient, incompetent and corrupt judges.
Right.
Everybody knows that. Secondly, judiciary's real challenge is that it does not have the infrastructure that it should have. But most of all, I feel that judiciary is rudderless.
Okay.
Judiciary has nobody who can, who is guiding them. And I feel that this is where the Chief Justice of India is making a single biggest mistake. He thinks that sitting in Supreme Court and hearing specially petitions is something which, he should do, or allocating matters to Justice Khanna's court or Justice Bela Trividi's court is something which he should do personally. I mean, I find it very funny that Chief Justice should really have this kind of a control as master of the roster.
Right.
And he should waste his time. Chief Justice, if he really is a leader of the entire judiciary of the country, which he is by his office, he should really lead by example. He should travel on the width and breadth of India. He should meet judges at every stage. He should meet lawyers at every place. He should interact with the litigants. He must realize that we are not able to cater justice to people.
Right.
It's not just delay. The quality of justice today is really a serious question mark. And that is where Chief Justice has to, cajole his judges across the country. He has to make sure that when the collegium which he heads, he appoints a Chief Justice in a state, which Chief Justice, can really do something extraordinary. I'll give example of Chief Justice Abhay Oka in Karnataka.
Yes.
He was singularly responsible of persuading young lawyers to accept judges and to bring young district judges to the High Court. As a result of that, there are 15 outstanding judges in Karnataka High Court today.
Okay.
He improved the system substantially. He improved the registry. He, ensured that those judges who had question mark, they were sidelined. He really single-handedly, in 3 years, did a great service to judiciary and administration of justice in Karnataka.
Right.
Now, this is what is missing. And Chief Justice Chandrachud, I must say, has not realized that at all. We expected him to do it. Because after our experience with Chief Justices Deepak Mishra, Justice Keher, Justice Gogoi, Justice Bobde and Justice Ramna, we thought that here was a Chief Justice who's really going to do something, really transform the judiciary into, justice-oriented institution, a just and a reasonable institution. But that has not happened. He is having no time. While he is having time to go and give lecture in, Harvard and other institutions or Oxford, but he doesn't have time to go to the, remotest courts of the country and see the condition. See how people are suffering because they are not getting justice. Both on the civil and criminal side, our institution has really failed to live up to the expectations of the citizens. And citizens have a right to get justice, not only quick justice, inexpensive justice, but also fair and real justice,
Right.
which is missing. And that's where I think there is a serious issue.
So what you're trying to say is also that one person can also bring that change with the right leadership. Like you gave Justice
Absolutely.
Abhay example.
Chief Justice Venkatachalaya did.
Yeah.
He led by example, and they were able to ensure that corrupt High Court judges were transferred.
Right.
Those judges who were inefficient were transferred. I mean, here is an administration where collegium takes, for example, 4 judges of Gujarat have been ordered to be transferred some 6-8 months ago, and government is not implementing, and Chief Justice Chandrachud is sitting there without doing anything.
Right.
And even he removed the matter which was before Justice Kaul's court, about this very issue about non-appointment and transfer of judges on the eve of his retirement.
Right. Let's talk about assignment of cases then, since you mentioned that that case was removed from that bench. Now, assignment of cases has always been a bone of contention for the past few years at least. We had, for our viewers again, we had in 2018 an unprecedented press conference by 4 Supreme Court judges, and even there is similar issues of benches being handpicked for certain politically sensitive cases, and we had you write a letter recently, address it to the court with similar allegations. After all these years, why haven't we been able to fix this issue? Why is it still a burning issue in the Supreme Court?
First and foremost, I must beg your pardon. I did not make allegations.
Right.
I pointed out what is happening.
Right.
I pointed out with hard facts that what is happening in the institution is not really good for the institution.
Right.
You see, you may say that as Chief Justice, you are the master of the roster. But like you say in every judgment today for last 77 years, that every power is coupled with duty.
Right.
And every power must be exercised for bona fide considerations and for legitimate purposes. If you as Chief Justice are not exercising power as master of the roster in a fair and reasonable manner, then naturally that's an abuse of power. And this is where, it's a serious issue that, I don't think Chief Justice is so naive. Chief Justice Chandrachud knows. He is not so naive that he doesn't realize that certain matters going to certain benches will only meet a certain fate. And that fate is not justice oriented. That fate is subjective fate.
Right.
It is not an objective result. And yet he allows these matters to go before certain judges who will take that kind of a subjective view. Now this is disturbing because you cannot do this and you cannot allow the judicial machinery to be used. Today what has happened is, I'll tell you something. In opposition ruled states, it's become a fashion for the BJP to somehow engineer some kind of PILs, and the judges are more than willing to entertain those PILs, like this Calcutta case,
Right.
and pass all kinds of orders condemning the state governments, pointing out alleged corruption and ordering arrests, large scale arrests, etc., etc. It is surprising that not a single a BJP ruled state such a thing has happened. As you can verify that. But in Gujarat since 2014, every examination for public recruitment has had to be cancelled because of leakage of papers. We have seen that happening in a large scale in Uttar Pradesh. Recently, the Honorable Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh publicly admitted that examination recruitments of sub-inspectors or constables was completely fraudulent. CBI doesn't do anything there.
Right.
But it's, take for example sand mining. Now, they have now used this sand mining to go after opposition ruled states in Jharkhand, in Tamil Nadu. But and this is what I had pointed out to the Madras High Court. There are thousands of cases pending in BJP ruled states about sand mining.
Okay.
ED or CBI has not even bothered to look at them. Now, it is the job of the judiciary to see that this kind of nonsense stops. I am not for a moment, I am against corruption in every form.
Right.
Whether it is done by BJP or Congress or X or Y. Every kind of corruption should be fought. But if you are going to target the opposition ruled states and opposition parties in this fashion and allow judicial process to be used for that, then I think nothing is left of constitution.
Right.
Nothing is left of rule of law. And that is really a sad commentary on us.
So you just used the phrase that you allow judicial process to be used for this. How do you think the Supreme Court's leadership is working in this fashion for allowing this to happen in the lower courts? Is that something that you're trying to say?
Look, Supreme Court has many judges, and I
Right.
must say there are a large number of judges who are willing to stop this kind of abuse. Large number of judges.
Right.
And there are only few judges who are, who are willing to permit this nonsense to go on.
But how does this trickle down to the lower judiciary is what I'm trying to understand, because every case cannot go to the Supreme Court.
I must say that the message is not trickling down to the lower judiciary.
Right.
Today, no judge in Supreme Court is willing to pass strictures against the judgments of high courts and lower courts and say that what you have done is completely unacceptable.
Right.
It is not only constitutionally wrong, it is legally wrong, but it is dishonest.
Right.
It's intellectually dishonest and it is accentuated by your bias. That's kind of condemnation must take place when they see that power is being abused by judicial officers, be it a subordinate judge or a high court judge. It's the duty of Supreme Court, if they were to send a message in 10-20 matters and name the judges, then I think this nonsense will stop today.
Right.
People's civil liberties will be upheld. People's fundamental rights will be protected.
Right.
That's not happening. So today, a message across the country is, let us do what we can to help the party in power. Supreme Court anyway is not going to do any much about it. Now that's I think that message must change.
Right. So it's not being able to lead by example, essentially, is the point here. Now, you've mentioned civil liberties, of course. I'd like to make a segue here to it's been a polarizing topic. It's always been, we're talking about the CAA here, the Citizenship Amendment Act. It's been in public debate for a few years now, essentially, even with the rules being notified. I'd like to know from you what your opinion on the law is, and also separately on the Supreme Court's handling of the case as well, since the petitions have been pending for a few years now.
I think Supreme Court's handling can be described as mishandling, because Supreme Court is not willing to hear many such sensitive cases. And whatever may be the legal outcome, at least you must hear when this kind of law is can be drastically used, can be abused. In the garb of identifying foreigners, if you are going to target a minority community, because it is essentially at the to target the minority community. Let us not all forget that minority community are as much citizens of this country as anybody else is.
Right.
And they constitute 15% of our population. They are not aliens, they are not foreigners. They have been living here also in this country for over 1200 years.
Right.
And we must respect them. We can't just treat them as second rate or third rate citizens. So I think that I don't want to go into the constitutionality or otherwise of CAA, but I must say that Supreme Court should have really heard this matter as quickly as possible.
Right.
Should have pronounced upon its legality, or otherwise it would have set at rest doubts which persist in minds of many people.
Right. So this is about the cases that court hasn't handled, but about the cases that court has dealt with. If we talk about the composition of the Election Commission of India, we've had quite a few events happening with regard to the composition. We had the Supreme Court judgment which laid down the process. Then we had a new law that was passed which tweaked that process. Then we had new commissioners being appointed and the Supreme Court refusing to stay it. Now, how do you think ECI's independence can be ensured today?
Well, the only institution which can ensure independence of constitutional bodies is the Supreme Court of India. And sadly, Supreme Court of India has failed persistently.
Right.
I mean, if 5 judges bench decided that the election commissioners' appointments must be in consultation with the Chief Justice of India, who should be part of this election committee, the government brings the law and says nothing doing, we don't want Chief Justice, we will have one minister appointed by the Honorable Prime Minister, in addition to leader of opposition.
Right.
Then when that was challenged, I think it was the duty of the Supreme Court bench headed by Justice Khanna to have really stayed the new law.
Right.
I mean, it is not enough to say that Parliament doesn't have, some kind of unbridled power. Parliament also has powers which are subject to constitutional limitations. And it was once a 5-judge bench has declared so. I think Supreme Court, it only means that the 2 learned judges disagreed with what the 5 learned judges held,
Right.
which is a sad commentary, because after retirement of Justice Joseph, if you do this, then what is the consequence? As a consequence, you have appointed these 2 gentlemen, in hurry, in less than 24 hours, who are, officers, retired officers of Government of India, as election commissioners. You have not even seen whether they have the credentials. For example, the law brought by the BJP after the Supreme Court judgment, the amending law,
Right.
itself says that you can only appoint those persons who have expertise and experience in election process. Now, I dare say that the 2 learned gentlemen who have been appointed have no experience. Now, what is the result? The result today is that every day election commission is proving to the nation openly that it is a failed institution.
Right.
Every day, be it unable to stop the kind of statements that the Prime Minister has repeatedly made. His election commission doesn't even have courage to issue notice to him. It issues notice to party president, doesn't even use his name, as if his name is such a sacrilege that you can't mention it, and says star campaigner. As against that, you immediately after that you prohibit the former Telangana Chief Minister Rao from campaigning for 2 days. You have issued personal notices to Surjewala and many others in this election. So, and look at the narrative. Sadly, the narrative which has been brought about because of the failure of the election commissioner is terribly low.
Right.
This is not the kind of election that people of India deserve. The people of India deserve an intelligent, engaging electioneering process where every political party is, especially the ruling party, is able to tell people what it has done, what its achievements are, and what it intends to do in next 5 years.
Right.
Now, as a result of these kind of attacks on the minority community, on the Congress party, look at the Congress leadership. I mean, for a Prime Minister of India to say that Pakistan will be, happy if Shehzada were to become Prime Minister, this kind of statements are, I would say simply, are really unbecoming of the Prime Minister. After all, Prime Minister is the Prime Minister of world's largest democracy.
Right.
And if the election commission is not able to stop him from repeating this, to say that Congress party will take away the Mangal Sutra and give it to the Muslims. What kind of suggestions are these? This is really, we are making ourselves, a laughing stock in the eye of the world. You may invite 28 countries, representative to oversee the election. But look at your own conduct and look at the failure of the election commission. And look at this now, election commission after 11 days suddenly says, oh, the first phase counting should have been X plus Y. It is unheard of that at any point of time counting has been increased as they have done. By almost 5-6% after 11 days. And even then, it has not provided the supporting data. So, I would say that election commission's failure is singularly attributable to the Supreme Court.
Right.
Government will always want to weaken the institution. Every ruling party, be it Congress, BJP, everybody who wants a strong, constitutional bodies. But it is the judges who have to step in and say nothing. And that's where I give credit to Justice Joseph's judgment. That yes, we must have a fiercely independent election commission. And to ensure that independence, involvement of Chief Justice is good. Of course, involvement of Chief Justice in selection of CBI has been a miserable failure. We have seen repeatedly what kind of directors have been selected by a selection committee comprising of Chief Justice of India.
Right.
But having said that, at least there must be semblance of, reasonableness in the process, which is missing.
So you're saying that there has been alleged violations, there have been alleged violations of the Model Code of Conduct during these elections, and you're pointing towards failure of the Election Commission of India. If the Election Commission of India does not act, what is the recourse for citizens? And this is my last question to you. This is for the audience, if you could.
No, I think unfortunately we the people of India are left at the mercy of the powers be. be
Right.
it executive, be it judiciary, be it legislature.
Hmm.
We are helpless. They have hijacked the country from us. There is nothing we can do. If we were to go to court, today's courts will not even interfere. Otherwise, you know, as a fact, these are not alleged, violations of Model Code of Conduct. These are clear-cut violations of Section 123 of the Representation of People Act, as settled by the Supreme Court of India. Use of religion in electioneering, in election campaign, is prohibited per se, and candidate is therefore liable to be disqualified, and his election is liable to be declared invalid. Now, what is happening is that Prime Minister will not make these statements in Varanasi, where he is contesting from, after
Right.
filing the nomination, before filing the nomination. But he will do it in every other constituency. So he can take a stand. I didn't do it while I was, was seeking votes in my own constituency. But we must remember that after all, political parties have a responsibility, and they are, singularly not exercising that responsibility to, restrain their, candidates from using religion and abusing the minority communities. I feel that citizens have no recourse left. Sadly, we have to just wait and watch as to what is. Maybe the good sense of citizens in their voting pattern will tell us whether they are really happy about the outcome or these kind of statements. That's all we can do. Every 5 years we can go to the voting booth,
Right.
cast our vote and forget it. That's why I have always believed that democracy in India only functions during electioneering.
Right.
Once the elections are over, democracy comes to an end. So that's what it is.
Okay, on that very somber note, we've reached the end of this interview. Just for our viewers, all the judgments that Mr. Dave mentioned or that came up in the questions, I'll be adding a link to those in the description in case you want to go through them. Mr. Dave, thank you so much for joining us and for being so candid with your answers, as you always are. And for our viewers, thank you so much for watching.
Thank you very, very much.